All right, I'm going to make a start, and I'm going to welcome everybody to another in this Leaders Link series. Thrilled to see so many faces, familiar faces, and also some people new to these conversations. These are weekly, and we invite a special guest, somebody, a leader in the world who has got something really significant to share about some of the big challenges that we're all working on. And I'm really, really delighted to welcome Virginie Helias today. Virginie, I'm going to say a little bit more by way of an introduction in a moment before we dive into the conversation. But maybe before I do that, I just wanted to say a couple of things about context. So Leaders Quest work is all about helping leaders and companies align profit with purpose. And, you know, we very aspirationally are focused on how do we create a more compassionate, wise world, and you know, what does that really look like in practice, and how do we deliver a world where everybody has opportunity within the means of the planet. Now, in many ways, today's conversation is going to be about the sustainability of the planet, given Virginie's role, and a topic that I know you're all interested in. But you know, the more I talk about Leaders Quest mission, as I just look around me at what's going on right now, it feels more and more aspirational in some ways. You know, certainly if you read the news headlines, it would be easy to think that we're moving further away from some of the things we all care about rather than closer to them. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge the moment. I'm sitting here in New York. You're all in different parts of the world. We've got colleagues here in Detroit and other American cities. On top of the global pandemic, on top of huge economic distress all over the world, enormous challenges, especially in developing countries. Some of you here from parts of the world that are really touched by all of this. South Africa, welcome to our friends from there. And right now, you know, I've got colleagues in Hong Kong dealing with all that's happening there, and here in the States. I think it's fair to say people feel a huge sense of trauma, distress, sadness, but also really motivated. And I deeply hope that we are seeing a moment when people are, all of us, are standing up in different ways and finding our voices in ways that we've perhaps failed to do in the past. So I just want to acknowledge that. Here we are at an extraordinary time. I know lots of you are deeply thoughtful about what's going on in your own communities and in communities all over the world. And I know you're all here because you care very deeply, and you're in different ways super active in helping shape the future. So just, you know, this is a moment, right? We're in an extraordinary moment, and I think a moment full of opportunity, but also a great deal of pain and suffering. So in that spirit, I'm thrilled to welcome Virginie Helias. Virginie is a very special friend. I've watched closely her work over the last few years. I have to say, actually, your own family has been hugely touched by the COVID pandemic. So, you know, you're dealing not only with your work, but things that have gone on for you as a family through this period. And Virginie is somebody, she spent over 30 years at P&G. She's worked across a bunch of brands. She's led huge innovation projects. She's built brands in that company. Her passion, can we go on mute, everybody? Her passion is really about how we live together on this one planet and what it means to be sustainable when you're a huge consumer goods company. So I know your role is one that you lobbied for to be created before you ever knew you'd end up occupying the position as Chief Sustainability Officer. For those of you who are not familiar with the whole kind of sustainability world, Virginie's well respected as one of the world's top leaders in the field. And I'm thrilled that you've taken time to join us. So a big, big thank you, Virginie, for being here. And let's start, you know, your business has a commitment to doing the right thing. You've moved sustainability in the broadest sense of the word to the center of the business. And I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about what that means.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled to be here as well. So we call it being a force for good and a force for growth. And it's really based on the deep conviction that the more sustainability is built in the business, not bolted on, the greater impact we can have. So it is now, after years of working at it, it is now embedded in the way we innovate, in the way we build our brands, and in our culture overall. And so when we develop, for instance, innovation that allows people to wash their clothes in lower temperature, say, from 60 to 40 degrees, it is actually a 35 to 45% saving in energy. And if you multiply that by the number of households that we touch, 5 billion people around the world, that is a great impact. And so the impact we have is really through our brands. And P&G invented brand management like in 1925. And now we are committed 100 years later to reinvent it and really to make sure that our brands deliver more than just a functional benefit. So a better clean or better shape. I mean, now people are asking, that's great, but what are you doing concretely for a better society? And so we are on a journey where each of our leadership brands, I mean, those who are leader in their category, and we have over 20 of those, need to define what we call their ambition, which is a long-term measurable commitment, which can be social or environmental, that is measurable and that is brought to life with tangible acts. And that needs to fit with the equity so that it is really authentic. And one example is, for instance, Herbal Essence, the shampoo, has committed to protect endangered plants and to promote plant biodiversity. So this is really going beyond leaving your hair clean and soft. And this is what every brand needs to do, not only delivering the functional benefit, but being a net positive contributor to society.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I know one of the things you've needed to do, because you're producing products that people use and consume every day and, require manufacturing and packaging and then go into the water systems and so on. So you're touching many really important environmental issues, and you've needed to help drive sector-wide transformation, which I think in many ways is what we've all got to focus on. Could you just give us an example of a particularly tough issue where you stood up as a business, and sort of how did it start and what's it involved to drive change on some of these really difficult, intractable challenges?
So the most difficult, and maybe because we are a multinational company based in Ohio with a very strong culture, the most difficult has been to change the culture. And I'm like so proud to see how it has shifted. It is really a story of change management. I mean, I remember when I started in the job, I asked one of the senior leaders, who was actually one of the most supporter of sustainability. I asked him, so how often do you talk about sustainability in your day-to-day business meeting? And his answer was disheartening. I mean, he said, well, each time I have a meeting with you. And now this has really shifted. Now sustainability is part of the business conversation, whether I'm there or not, And so every year we measure that. Actually, we measure the culture shift, and we do that among our 97,000 employees. And we have two key questions on sustainability. The first one is, my business leader or function leader has talked about the importance of sustainability for the work we do, not as an add-on and great for society and to do the right thing, but for the work we do, totally embedded. And the number this year is 76.
Sorry.
It's 76% of employees saying that their boss has talked about the importance, and it's a +10 versus 2 years ago. So it's a major shift. And then 83% of people are saying that they are contributing to their organization's sustainability efforts. This is really now part of everybody's job. And so obviously you don't get to this state if you don't have the C-suite. And I'm particularly happy to see how our CEO and our C-suite have really embraced sustainability. And the fact that we are one of the founding members of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is one of the largest efforts, to prevent plastic from leaking into the environment, especially the ocean. We are founding members. Our CEO is the chair of this alliance, and so this is a very strong statement. So for me, the cultural change has been the most enabling. And now we are a catalyst for many big initiatives. I'm talking the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, the 50-liter Home Coalition, which is about reinventing the innovation agenda on water and energy for urban living, is another coalition that we've led, cross-sector, cross-value chain. And there are many other examples, but it starts with changing the culture.
Fantastic. I mean, on something like plastics, which we all, experience in different ways, where are we as a society and you as a business in different industries? How far along that plastics journey are we? Because it still feels like our lives are full of plastic that we don't quite know what to do with. Can you give us a sense of what progress we're making and actually what we should be doing as citizens?
Yes. So we are making progress, but not fast enough and not at the scale that we need. And this is why initiatives like the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation initiative, all these are absolutely critical to make progress. And so it's interesting. It's a case where there is actually enough funds, there is enough money to find a solution. What's missing is a qualified, scalable solution. And so the job of the Alliance is starting with Southeast Asia, where, the most of the leakage occurs, because there is mismanaged waste. And so the point here is to qualify those scalable pilots that then the institutional investor can come in and scale them. So I think we need more of those. We need really to find more solutions. And we also need to realize that it will be very hard to recycle our way to the problem. We need to find other solutions, other business models, like, for instance, having durable, refillable packaging,
right,
that gets rid of the single use. And so, and we are exploring on many of those different solutions, but we need more solution. We need more scalable, qualified solution, so that the money can come in and scale it at the speed that we need.
Great. And just a word on what we should be doing as citizens. I mean, recycling, yes, but what more? Is there particular, can we have our voices be heard? What should we be doing on an issue like the waste issue?
Well, recycling is a big deal, because there is no country in the world where even in my country where I live in Switzerland, which is one of the best in terms of recycling, the rates are around 60%, and right, so there is no one country in the world where it's 100%. So there is still a huge need for consumers. So there is what manufacturers need to do, which is to make their packaging 100% recyclable. But it's a moot point if consumers do not recycle. And it also goes with building the infrastructure, because obviously if there is no infrastructure, consumers cannot recycle. So it's like at every level of, every player needs to do play their role, so that's the system overall works. Citizens still have a big role in just recycling their shampoo bottle.
Right. So I'd love to talk just a little bit holistically about the role of business in the world. I know you're somebody who's deeply passionate about business being responsible, business's role in society, business's role in caring for the planet and addressing the costs and externalities that we generate. But let's talk a little bit about where you think we are on the journey of business, kind of frankly reframing its role and understanding that, in a globalized world with all the many challenges that we're facing around that right now, like it or not, business is being asked to step up in ways that go way beyond the remit that many people imagined, as they stepped into corporate life. I'd just be interested in your frank sense of how that's going.
Yeah. So I was reflecting. Obviously, I've had a lot of time to reflect on the sanitary crisis, and there has been a major silver lining into that, which is that we've really seen the emergence of this new consciousness, from citizens, from government, from the corporate sector, as people have realized that human health and the planet health were totally interrelated. And, even the shelter-in-place situation has been like an accelerator for certain green habits, driving less, using less products with less packaging, reusing products. And many are determined to stick with it. They don't want to go back. And so, because they've realized that they can live well with the simpler, less wasteful, lower emission lifestyle. Obviously, this is for those who, like all of us, have already too much, not for those who don't have enough. But as leaders, our role is really to come together to enable the condition for this lower emission economy and less wasteful lifestyles to happen, to make it possible, to make it accessible, affordable, and desirable for all. And for this to happen, we need two things. We need what I call radical collaboration for radical change. I mean, we need, I talked about it, but the private sector, the public sector, we need activists, civil society to come together. And the other thing that we need really is a new narrative. Because, even the word sustainability, we don't want to sustain the old world. And I'm actually proposing the word regenerability, because it's about our collective ability to regenerate our economy, our society, our planet, and frankly also ourselves. And so I think that this is frankly a once in a lifetime opportunity for business to come together and to really create the future we all crave. I mean, yesterday, the World Economic Forum just revealed their theme for next Davos, and it's the Great Reset, which is totally appropriate. And so I think that's the mission, the Great Reset for business.
Now, Virginie, I know you're by nature an optimist, and that's, I think, a very necessary driver, actually, when you're trying to lead change on big challenges. And given the role you play, you spend a lot of time thinking about where is humanity, for example, in dealing with planetary boundaries, climate change, but also the other issues that we have around the living within the means of this one planet. I think people will be interested to just hear your sense of where we are on that journey. Clearly, we're at real risk of, or we've gone over the top on in a number of areas, and we really are in this incredibly urgent situation, and yet struggling to grasp the urgency. I just wonder if you could comment a little bit, across a 30-year career, and now given where we are in 2020.
So, although I'm extremely proud of what we collectively have achieved, especially with an acceleration in the past years, when I look at the data, I am hopeless because we are so far off, But when I look at the ability of human beings to go beyond their self-interest, to really serve the greater good, like we have seen so many examples during the pandemic, then I'm full of hope, and I really think that the next years will be a test for humanity. If we don't seize this crisis, I mean, the situation will leave our children, will be disastrous. But, we've managed to flatten the curve, as they say, of the pandemic. I really believe that we can flatten the curve as well of climate and social injustice.
Right. And just in a moment, we're going to open up and invite people to raise their hands in the chat function or the participant function to ask questions. But I just want to ask one last question before we open up to the audience. And it's about your own personal sustainability, energy, kind of sense of faith in the future. How do you sustain yourself?
So I think the word faith is particularly relevant for me. I mean, despite what we see every day from the media, which is frankly the worst of humanity, I mean, I really believe, from having seen it, that courage, compassion, forgiveness can change the world and save the world. I mean, from Mandela to Mother Teresa, I mean, that was the recipe for success, and we need to rediscover it. And for my own sustainability, I have a strong sense of my own boundaries. So my job is to allow people we serve through our brands to live.
We just go to mute. Could one of the team, the group, on mute so that we can hear? There's still somebody with a background noise. Okay, thank you. Keep going, Virginie.
Yeah, so my job is to allow people to live well within planetary boundaries, and I'm applying this concept of boundaries to me first, and I know exactly what I need to keep my energy for what really matters, and I need 5 things. I need 8 hours of sleep, and having been in the same time zone for 3 months has been a blessing for this. Mm-hmm. I need 60 minutes of workout every day, 30 minutes at least of meditation, and I need quality time with my husband and very frequent connection with my 3 children. And when I have that, I am unstoppable. And I have a personal mantra, which is brave, not perfect. Mm-hmm. And with that, I can forge ahead with no hesitation.
Lovely. Brilliant. Yeah. Perfect guidance. You're speaking to a lot of people who no doubt need to model in different ways what you've just set out. Thank you. Thank you, Virginie. So Beth, can you go ahead and invite people to ask questions?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So we'd like to invite you to ask questions using the raise hand function. I'm going to call on a couple people, 2 or 3 people at a time, to share their questions, and then we'll answer in batches. So I see the first hand raised is Shekhar.
And this is in the participant function that people go to raise their hand, right?
It's, you hit the participant function, and then you will see a raise hand icon below the list of names.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shekhar, welcome. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Shekhar. I'm calling from Bangalore, India. We work with waste pickers and provide waste management services to create better livelihoods. And one of the things that we are truly looking at is how to create inclusive business models that integrate waste pickers into a circular economy. And currently we're working with the body shop and so on, but P&G, I'm going to challenge you a little, in the sense, P&G has been very reticent about engaging in anything which they are not legally bound to do. It would be interesting for me to hear specifically how would you as P&G try to get sustainability in, which is beyond what is asked for by the legal systems of the different countries.
Great, thank you for your question. So I don't know the specifics of
Right,
who you have engaged with, in the country, but what I do know is that we've decided that what we will do for the big planetary challenges will be not as P&G alone, but within a coalition, within a broader cross-sector partnership, because we believe this is how we can have the most impact and drive things at scale. And so particularly, and I can mention India because this is one of the priority areas for the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. We have this amazing project which is called Renew Ganges, which is on the Ganges River, where we work with the community around the river to help them create a new business model for the circular economy. So involving the waste pickers, helping collect the plastic that can then be recycled and create value and new streams of livelihood for the community. And there is also an education part, which is explaining that the river is not the waste stream, but how we can create value from the waste. And it is going right now. I was supposed to go and visit actually, but in April, which was not possible because of COVID. But I think it's one of the examples of what we want to continue doing and to scale. I mean, those very local business model that involves the community and creates models that we can then further scale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have 4 hand raised now. What I'm going to do is ask for each of you to share your question and just really kind of a succinct couple sentences what you want to know, and then Lindsay, I'll pass to you to kind of help filter through. So let's get a question from Carolina.
Hi, lovely to listen to you this morning, Virginie, and congratulations on the progress on the culture. I'm curious to hear more about the drivers. What was the defining factors that enable that shift in culture?
That's a great question, and it's a very long program. I have been carrying a toolbox for several years with different tactics, because the thing with sustainability is that it's not like QA, you know, it's not like something that you can apply one size fits all across the organization. There is a very strong human element. So I actually spent my first 3 years in the job talking, engaging one-on-one with senior leaders of the company and really trying to understand their motivation. And that was interesting because the motivation was very different. I mean, it could have been what legacy they wanted to leave their grandchildren, but it could also be they wanted to have a more successful business, you know, and so it was one of their tactics. And whatever the motivation, I mean, I took them all because what I wanted is to, you know, to drive progress. And so the key things was actually also to realize that it would not have been possible to convince everyone from day one, and too much energy spent. So I decided to work with a limited number of people. I call them my 1%, the coalition of the willing. And with them to start, they were already convinced on the business case. And so what we did is that we started experimenting. And with successful experiments, more people came. And one of the trigger was when 3 years ago we launched Head and Shoulders bottle with beach plastic, you know, in Davos to raise awareness on the issue of ocean plastic pollution. And that had an immense impact internally because people realized that you could have great brand idea, great business idea that would also be better for the environment. And from that, you know, we started many different experiments and people got convinced. And that was really the beginning. It was kind of a grassroots bottom-up effort. After some years, I decided that it was time to make it systemic. And this is where I worked with the C-suite to embed sustainability in all the processes that we have, to make it a key requirement for all our strategy reviews, to play on the internal competition, you know, scorecarding the efforts by business, you know, to show it works very well because we are a very competitive culture. And that way to drive progress in a very systemic manner. The other key things was to, as I call it, to bring the outside in, to make sure that we were constantly fed with the best examples and the best practices. And for this, I created an external advisory board with thought leaders, practitioners, and with the C-suite, so chaired by the CEO. And they spent 2 days every year and to challenge us, to bring us the best practices, to guide us. And it's with this team that we developed our Ambition 2030 2 years ago, which is our roadmap, you know, to enable positive impact at scale. So it has been, you know, several tactics, bottom up, top down, a pull and a push. We needed it all.
Beth.
Great. So can we hear from Valerie?
Yes, hello, and hello, Virginie. I think
Hi, Valerie.
it's great to see you again. Yes, well done. Fantastic journey. I still remember the beginning of it 6 years ago. It's quite impressive. I wanted to ask you a question that I read a lot about and that leaves me still puzzled. So there is a lot about regenerative economy, the need to slow down in our lifestyle, consumption to be within the means of the planet. And there is a lot of discussion about zero growth or less growth, or what's realistic in terms of growth that can make it the human race be survive over time. And I'm just questioning, how does that resonate in the world of business? Because obviously we still are in a system where growth is how we measure business success. I don't believe it's the right one. It still exists. How do you reconciliate that when you are at P&G? Are there discussion about it?
Yeah.
Before you reply, I want to collect several questions because I just want to make sure we get a lot of voices in. So I'm going to collect you maybe just notes. So Krishna Reddy, please, let's hear from you. Let's add up a few questions here.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the wonderful insights today. I had a question about a particular topic exactly. That is, like as P&G produces like thousands of products, and it's good to see that the company is making a progress to make it more sustainable. And the result of it is a lot of eco labels that are popping up in the market. Over the last few years, we have seen a tremendous rise in these eco labels that are coming up, each with their own different kind of analysis. I want to ask, like, how much can the end user trust these labels? Are they genuine? Are they just greenwashing? And would it be beneficial if there is a universal assessment for these kind of activities?
Great. And just so we're collecting those questions, Kojo Paris, let's hear from you.
Hi, thanks a lot, Lindsay. Helias, in my previous life as an investment banker, I spent a lot of time with your colleagues creating financial value. And I heard you mention measurable non-financial value. How do you measure that, and how do you use that to allocate your resources so as to maximize the non-financial, environmental, social impact of what you do?
Thank you. And I'm going to get one more question before we hand this back to you, Virginie, which is from Vanessa.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a background in marketing. I've been developing business in multinational companies, and I'm very interested in the sustainability area and to be a sustainability manager. What are the background and skills most needed for this position?
Fabulous. Thank you, Virginie. Over to you to wend your way through those different questions as you see fit.
I'll just take them in order of being asked. They're all very good and very different. So the question on zero growth, how does it resonate? Not very well, because it's not aspirational. Who would, jump out of bed every morning for zero growth? And so what I like to do is to reframe it. We need a better growth. I'm going for the positive, not for the zero, which is doing it both, making sure that this lower emission lifestyle, this zero carbon economy is actually desirable. And this is why our strategy force for good and force for growth, because the more we grow, the more we can be a force for good. The key is to decouple, this famous, decoupling your footprint from your growth. And this is what we do when we go for 100% renewable electricity, which is the case today, that all our products made in North America and in Europe are made with renewable electricity. So then you decouple your growth from your footprint. And for consumers, this is what I said in terms of making this lifestyle desirable. One very exciting initiative that we've been participating in, it's called Brands for Good. And Brands for Good is a coalition of brands who are committing to leverage their voice and their innovation to make 9 behaviors mainstream and desirable for all. And you can go and check them on their website. And those 9 behaviors, they go from eating more plants to wasting no water. We believe that cumulatively they could create this better way of living without any negative impact. And so this is the role of brands, to leverage their skills, their financial resources, to make those behavior feasible and desirable and accessible. There was a question on eco-label, and I know there is a flurry of eco-labels, so you are absolutely right to ask the question. Consumers are thoroughly confused about what is better for the environment, and for good reasons, because it is very complicated. If I ask you, what is the greenest laundry detergent? You may answer, well, it's the detergent with plants. And I will tell you, based on science, this is not correct, because based on science, if you take the life cycle analysis, the greenest detergent is the one that allows you to wash in cold. It has nothing to do with whether there is plant or not in it. And the issue with certain eco-label is that they look at the list of ingredients and they basically decide whether the ingredient is on the blacklist or on the good to go list. And this is a very narrow way of looking at the environmental profile of a product. I mean, you need to look at the life cycle analysis. So we wish we could have, the universal label that will tell all this very complex information in simple symbol, but nobody has found one yet. So, and I'm taker if you have an idea, because obviously consumers want to have this information, and today they have to have very different sources of way to gather this information to make an informed decision. So we are going to step up as well on this, because we believe it's our responsibility to explain, what is better for the environment and less good. But it is a challenge. There was a question on how do we measure?
Yes, non-financial metrics.
Yeah, so financial metrics. So this is a very new space, and we are, looking at everything that is happening with SASB and others. There is obviously a great need to measure and to have the same accuracy and accountability on the non-tangibles metrics than we have on our traditional financial. We are not yet there. I mean, we are really learning. Obviously, when you change a company like P&G for a new accounting system, it is a huge thing. And so we want to make sure that whatever is the new thing, is here to stay. So we are involved. We are, very aware of what's happening. But it doesn't seem that today we are still in a position where there is one recommendation that everybody could apply. And because our company is so complex, we don't want to change and have to rechange again. But the key principle that we have is sustainability is embedded. So when we make a financial decision, when we make CapEx investment decision, we actually use the same metrics that you use for any investment, and it does work. I mean, we've been able to invest for the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. We have major work going on water. So we use some kind of shadow carbon water pricing to make sure that we value those resources at the right price. But we don't have still, the new accounting system that is coming. So we'll be one of the first ones to embrace it when it's there. It's just that we need to take into account the complexity of our businesses.
And then, Virginie, there was the question about the background for somebody aspiring to get into the sustainability space. And I'm going to add one more question to that, because Ridhi has written in with a question in a way similar. So these are kind of next generation questions and progressing one's career. I'm a student studying chemical engineering. I'd like to ask, what's your advice to emerging chemical engineers for incorporating sustainable process design to innovate solutions for reducing plastic waste? So, thankfully, we have a plethora of people who want to step up. And maybe you could respond to those two questions. Yeah.
So sustainability is not a discipline. It's a mindset. It's an approach to business. So I would say, I'm being a bit provocative, we don't need sustainability experts, or we need very few. We need people who understand the life cycle analysis. We need people who are well versed into the new metrics. But that's the minority. What we do need are the best legal, the best chemical engineers, the best financial, the best marketers, and we need them to make sustainability part of their job. So every week I have someone internally or externally saying, I want a job in your team. And I said, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is absolutely you can work on sustainability. Everyone is expected to do that. But the bad news is that you stay where you are and you make it part of your job, So, so I think sustainability is something that you have to integrate wherever you are. You need to do what's working for the culture and for the organization, as opposed to have the full theoretical knowledge, which for me is needed in a very few instances, but not for the majority.
Fabulous, Virginie. Thank you so much. I know we could carry on and on with, I can see more and more questions popping up, but we're also close to time. So I want to thank you very much for spending this time with us. I know people have really appreciated the conversation. It's quite a privilege to get this kind of a window into the thinking of a major company like P&G. I know there's still tons to do. You of all people are super conscious of how much more is to be done. And we really wish you well with the fantastic stuff that you have underway. We'll really be excited to see the journey going forward. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate having you with us. Please share the link, invite other friends to join us. You can use the hashtag LeadersLink to give feedback. Next week, I will be joined by Ashok Bashwani, the head of consumer banking for Barclays. Thursday, 11th of June, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. UK. I'd really encourage you to join. Banking is a sector that has been, or is much maligned for its role in some of the disasters we faced. Ashok, I can confidently tell you, is a wonderfully committed leader, and I think we'll have a very rich conversation with him. So would love to welcome you to that call. In the meantime, stay well, stay safe, keep doing all the great work that you're all doing in the world, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Virginie. Okay,
thank you very much, Lindsay.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay.